Now, on the Georgia vote, the second iteration of the Trump administration is up and running. We look at some key moves in week one, including one that affects multiple Georgians.
Moving on from the White House, President Trump says it's his call. Today, this former Atlanta mayor shares her side of the story. We sit down with Keisha Bottoms.
And our voice of the voter is a big deal on TikTok. We ask about the roller coaster ride of the past few weeks, with the app's future in the U.S. very much in limbo. All right now on the Georgia Vote.
From the 11 Alive studios, this is the Georgia Vote with Faith Jessie and Zach Merchant.
Well, welcome to the Georgia Vote. The first week of the second Trump administration is almost in the books, and what a busy week it was.
The big story this week, with a flurry of executive orders and administrative actions, President Trump kicked off a quick start to his second-term policy goals.
That's right. So among the many executive orders signed this week, a few caught the attention of many here in Metro Atlanta. Thursday, the president signed an order to declassify files related to the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. All three events fueled conspiracy theories for decades.
That's a big one, huh? A lot of people are waiting for this for years, for decades.
Yeah, the president promising everything will be revealed. In a statement, the King family said, "For us, the assassination of our father is a deeply personal family loss that we've endured over the last 56 years. We hope to be provided the opportunity to review the files as a family prior to its public release."
One of President Trump's first actions of his second term, issuing sweeping pardons and commutations to people convicted of crimes committed during the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol. A North Georgia defendant in that case says he and his family are relieved by the pardon. Philip Bunky Crawford was one of the hundreds arrested. Doug Richards from the 11 Alive political team talked with him.
Donald Trump's return to the presidency Monday changed Bucky Crawford's life by giving Trump the power to pardon Crawford of the criminal charges that had dogged him since July 2022.
When my wife told me, I dropped to my knees and I cried.
Crawford had been facing sentencing for attacking and obstructing police on January 6, 2021. Images gathered by the Justice Department showed Crawford wearing a Stop the Steal hoodie, confronting police at an entrance of the U.S. Capitol following a Trump rally outside the White House.
I shouldn't have been charged, found guilty at all, because I didn't have an opportunity to put up a case.
Crawford says he was merely defending another protester attacked by police that day and didn't deserve the charges filed against him. With Trump's pardon, he no longer faces those charges.
I wouldn't change none of my actions that day, other than maybe not going.
Crawford says he aims to keep supporting Trump in his second term with gratitude for the pardon. In Haralson County, Doug Richards, 11 Alive News.
Now, some lawmakers, including a handful of Republicans, criticized those sweeping pardons.
And as you may expect, Georgia Senator Jon Ossoff, a Democrat, is among those.
This is a dangerous and irresponsible decision by the president to grant impunity to those who engaged in a violent assault on the United States Capitol. And again, all Georgians, regardless of our political affiliation, should oppose and condemn this decision.
Well, some Republicans instead focused on pardons granted by President Biden before he left office, accusing the former president of setting a dangerous precedent. Well, this week, former Mayor Keisha Bottoms floated the idea of a run for governor here in Georgia. It comes after President Trump's social media post saying that he fired Bottoms and others from their roles at the White House. Well, Bottoms held a few roles in the Biden administration, including senior advisor. Well, in a one-on-one interview, she set the record straight.
I resigned January 4th. I sent a letter to President Biden thanking him for the opportunity to serve on the President's Export Council. And I made my resignation date effective January 20th. And so to answer your question, why Donald Trump singled me out at 1:30 a.m. following his historic inauguration putting me in the category of retired military general, a man who's feeding displaced people in Los Angeles, former envoy to Iran. I don't know. I like to think that I'm in great company, but I can't begin to tell you why President Trump does any of the things that he does, but he did. And what was really interesting about it, when he campaigned, he talked about reducing the price of eggs on day one and ending the war in Ukraine on day one. So there were all these expectations, and instead he sent a social media text supposedly firing me from a job that didn't pay me and a job that I had already resigned from.
What is your message to the guy up top, to President Trump today?
My message would be just to remember that you are a president for all America at this point. I don't think there's anybody who wants to see the president of the United States fail. But in succeeding, that means that you are thinking about not just the people who voted for you, but the people who didn't vote for you. How can we move our country forward? If people are concerned about economic issues, then address those issues. If you think you can do better with inflation, if you believe that you can stop the war in Ukraine, if you believe that you can improve immigration policies, whatever the things may be, do it for all people and not just the people that voted for you. But what's really concerning to me when you look at the pardons given to the January 6th prisoners, these were people who were attacked police officers, violent offenders. And there's now talk about them coming to the White House. And it just sends such a troubling message to people across this country, and especially to our children. What is the penalty for doing bad things when you can do it and get away with it, and the President of the United States says it's okay?
Now that there is a new administration, are you retiring from politics?
I've never retired from politics. From leaving the mayor's office to my time going into the White House, my involvement with the DNC as a party. And I always said when I left the mayor's office, that was not the end of my career in politics. So I'm keeping all of my options open. We know that there are races that will be taking place in the state of Georgia in 2026. I'm paying attention to what those opportunities may be. And, I'm in prayer and discussion with my family, and I'll just say stay tuned.
Do you think you see yourself more on the campaign side or in the driver's seat for these upcoming elections?
Driver's seat.
All right, the tease of the moment there. You can watch our extended interview with her right now on 11 Alive Plus. President Trump's nomination of former Georgia Congressman Doug Collins to lead the Department of Veterans Affairs will move to the full Senate. Confirmation by the full chamber is expected.
I will tell you right now, the veterans VA will not have a stronger fighter for the employees in the workforce than this secretary, if confirmed, and also one that will make sure that we're held accountable, because good work begots good work.
And also this week, the U.S. House passed the Laken-Riley Act, sending that bill to President Trump's desk for his signature. The bill is named after 22-year-old Laken Riley, who was murdered by an undocumented immigrant last year on the University of Georgia's campus. The bill orders immigration officials to detain undocumented immigrants who are charged, arrested, or convicted of certain crimes.
President Trump is pumping the brakes on federal DEI programs. Next, Georgia's NAACP president responds. President Trump is now just days into his new term, and he is moving quickly to dismantle federal diversity, equity, and inclusion jobs. In an interview, Gerald Griggs, the Georgia NAACP president, responded.
The new administration says it is winding down all federal employees and DEI roles, and White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed that in a tweet a few days ago. What do you make of that?
I make this an attack on affirmative action, as an attack on diversity, equity, inclusion. They're trying to roll us back to pre-1960s positions that the government has taken. Anytime that you reverse an executive order by Lyndon Baines Johnson, that shows you where your mind is. So I think that it's a misguided attack. There was progress that was being made in diversity in federal contracting, diversity and inclusion in so many areas of American life that is overseen by the federal government. So to see this swing in the opposite direction, basically as red meat, over the fights on CRT and the fights about,
CRT being critical race theory,
and the fights over whether or not which group is discriminated against the most. The purpose of DEI is to level the playing field. And I think that this president and his administration have used this as a wedge issue to divide voters, to divide American citizens. Diversity is a strength, and we at the NAACP are saying that we have to have diversity no matter what. And any administration or any company, for that matter, that pulls back on diversity can expect to hear from us.
I know that a lot of people watching will hear your answer and I know right now they're nodding their heads and they agree very much. I also know that some people are hearing what you said, and they might be thinking about something President Trump said in his inaugural address, and I'm quoting here. He said, "We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based." And I know there are a lot of people who heard that and were happy to hear that from the chief executive. To people who were glad to hear that, maybe welcoming a sign that DEI was going to be deprioritized in the federal government, what do you say to those folks?
I say to those folks, I understand what you believe DEI to be. I understand what you have been told a woke agenda is, but I would strongly urge you to Google the word woke. It means to be aware of social injustices that have impacted this country since its inception. And the purpose of DEI is to push back on those social injustices. So many of us the past week were celebrating Dr. King. I promise you that Dr. King would have been in favor of DEI because it was called affirmative action. It was actually introduced in executive orders by Lyndon Baines Johnson when we were dealing with the civil rights era. So if you are happy to hear we're going to roll that back, you would have been happy to hear a speech by Woodrow Wilson, who made sure that the Army was no longer, he segregated the Army through an executive order. And so I think that, as the president of the NAACP, I'm concerned when individuals are not students of history and see where this is going. We're not trying to take anybody's jobs away. We're not trying to say it should not be a meritocracy. But what we are saying is discrimination is alive. It's very well. And these methods and attacks are going to increase the discrimination. That's going to increase the lack of diversity. That's going to increase the need for the programs that are being gutted.
Quickly, one point of clarification. President Woodrow Wilson does not appear to have signed a specific order segregating the United States Army, but his administration is widely known for advancing policies that broadly increase discrimination across the federal government.
And now we want to bring in our political roundtable today. We have Mark Roundtree, Republican strategist and pollster. He's also the founder of Landmark Communications, and Kyle Gomez-Lineweber, director of public policy and advocacy at Galeo, which works to promote Latino political causes. Gentlemen, you're both returning panelists. Thank you so much for being here.
President Trump moving quick to dismantle the federal DEI apparatus, some might call it. He campaigned on issues like this. Does he have a mandate to carry out the policies that he's advancing in his first days, or do you agree with Gerald Griggs that this is an overstep?
Well, I haven't seen any evidence that shows that a wide swath of voters made their decision based off of DEI policies. We're certainly concerned about these actions because we want to see in our federal government and in our agencies and in socioeconomic outcomes and access to housing something that's reflective of the American people, which, we're a diverse community. And so we're concerned about the effects that these executive orders will have.
Now, Mark, I know you were in Washington for the inauguration.
Yes.
You, I'm sure, were listening to President Trump's inaugural address. You heard him talk about a colorblind and merit-based society. When you heard him say that, what went through your mind?
Certainly, those words being spoken on the day that we memorialize Martin Luther King and his life, there was a connection there. Obviously, you have disagreement between the two primary campaigns for president, and I can't agree, Kyle, that the people did not vote on that issue. I think there are very strong numbers of people that vote on the difference that one side, Kamala Harris, had spoken, and the other was Donald Trump. One was very much in favor of DEI and openly spoke about being woke, and then you had Trump saying no and it's time to end it. I think people understood the difference.
I'm curious, because you were in Washington, what was the feeling amongst Democrats? I ask this because you did come out of a pretty harsh campaign on both sides of the aisle with several attacks. Was it kumbaya in Washington, or was there still a tense feeling there?
I have to say, what was the most interesting thing, I actually posted about this on my Facebook page, was the lack of participation of the protesters. It was maybe 10 or 15% of the size that I have seen before.
Was it different
very
from 2017, the
very
inauguration
much
then?
smaller. They were centralized down at the Lincoln Memorial, and that was very interesting. And then I saw mainland Chinese students doing a tour of the Jefferson Memorial, which was also unusual because that memorial is so much about God and individual freedom. I was really surprised to see mainland Chinese students doing a formal tour there. But as to the total tone of the inauguration, it was much more. It's not a kumbaya, but it was nowhere near the vitriol and certainly none of the violence that we've seen in the past.
Real quick here, I want to ask you guys both about, we saw a lot of executive orders that came. I believe in his first term, the president signed one executive order on his first day. This time we saw several. Kyle, I want to ask you about this because it was one of his campaign promises to really come at the issue of immigration hard. We have seen some executive orders that is now potentially impacting asylum seekers, refugees, and even those coming to the border. What kind of feedback are you getting from the community here in Georgia?
Absolutely. I mean, look, our voters, Latino voters, and I think voters more broadly in Georgia, obviously want to see immigration reform. But certainly our community has a nuanced view of that. We want to see the government protect our national security, obviously, while also, embracing ideas of a legal pathway to citizenship. And some of our concerns with these executive orders, making it harder to obtain asylum, making it harder for refugees to enter this country, is that it actually, if you talk to immigration attorneys, a lot of them will tell you is that these types of measures actually encourage illegal border crossings because it makes it more difficult to go through the right way, and people in desperate who have desperate lives or in moments of crisis will take risks that we don't want them to take. So we have a number of concerns about, our community has a number of concerns about these executive orders already.
Yeah, we're going to take a pause right here, gentlemen, and bring you back in on the other side of the break. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back in. Panel is joining us. Mark, I want to just give you 20 seconds to respond to the immigration issue that's happening right now.
We've had 1,000 people or more already deported, or since Trump took office, the deportation process is underway and they've been stopped and arrested. So I think that is a major difference, and that's it's kind of a black eye to the Biden administration, which was basically arguing this couldn't be done.
2026 is around the corner. Keisha Bottoms, former Atlanta mayor, is rumored to be looking at it among a slew of other candidates announced or potentially announcing. Kyle, first to you, who are you watching for to announce in 2026?
Well, obviously Mayor Bottoms is someone to watch, but I certainly don't think anyone has a glide path on the Democratic side. We're looking at folks like Senator Jason Esteves. We're looking at, we've even heard rumor of Jason Carter potentially throwing his hat into the ring. So there are a number of potential candidates on the Democratic side who we could see run for governor in 2026.
Mark, who are the heavy hitters on the Republican side? Quickly.
Lieutenant Governor Burt Jones is probably the front runner if he gets into the race. Obviously, Attorney General Chris Carr and potentially Secretary of State Raffensperger, and potentially only Buddy Carter, the congressman from Savannah. As far as Keisha Bottoms, I find it very strange that she wants to go back into an executive role, given that it didn't work out so well when she was the mayor of Atlanta. She had poor relations for the city council, and I just don't think, I think a lot of people are going to question why she wants to do this.
I think that's going to be depending on who you ask, though, too.
Yes, no doubt.
How
you asked me.
Well, thank you guys. And that's why we're here, to get all of these differing opinions. We appreciate the time, and we hope to have you back.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Up next, our voice of the voter has made hundreds of thousands of dollars on TikTok. Cliff Vermeer weighs in on the politics surrounding TikTok and what a ban could mean for the business and its employees. Well, millions of people around the world use TikTok, including right here in the U.S. For some, it's much more than an app to just watch trending videos to get a laugh. This week's Voice of the Voter brings us inside the world of TikTok Shop, a business platform that's become a way of life for so many creators. Cliff Vermeer explains how a permanent ban could reshape a successful business.
So you guys, right now we are at the FEMI headquarters. I've always wanted to do things different. Like I always wanted to do things that's like, okay, you can't find this nowhere else. It leaves the hair moisturized, not greasy, okay? This is what made me so much money, and this is the Silk and Mist. This is the most viral product on TikTok right now. I remember going to a hair show, and the hair show ultimately all around, it didn't have a lot of people there. I took over 6,000 units of hair product. It wasn't even 1,000 people at the hair show, right? And I'm just sitting there looking at them, and I'm like, Cliff, there's no way that you have all these hair products and you're not selling them on TikTok. And literally, it's been life-changing. First month of me being consistent, I made $100,000. Second month of me being consistent, I made $150,000. You know, it just kept going up, kept going up. You now are able to employ other people and give other people jobs and shippers and stuff.
Obviously, there was a TikTok ban that took place right now. If you go onto the App Store, you cannot download the app. What does that mean for your business and other creators in this space?
So what that means is pretty much like, I will say for months, I did get super comfortable with just only relying on TikTok. It's taught me I have to still take advantage of all my other social media platforms. However, I really hope that, the US and TikTok can come to some type of, agreement or something, because I feel like if they do completely ban TikTok, just imagine how many businesses, imagine how many people won't have that income anymore. So if TikTok does go away, the next step for me is just doing what I was doing before, but just going 10 times more hard. So politics in the US, what I'm most concerned about things that actually matter, right? Like cost of groceries, cost of gas, cost of living. The economy is terrible right now. We need to try to figure that out, because if the economy is bad, right, and then we're talking about taking away TikTok, that's not going to make it any better. It's just going to be harder to survive in the United States.
It takes away an income source for a lot of people.
Yes.
Our thanks to Cliff for that. And I will say that Cliff also said that if TikTok shuts down, it's going to be all about the website and other social media. So
talk about a successful business. Boy, oh boy. Well, thank you for watching us today. Whether you're a TikTok viewer or not, we will be back next week. We hope to see you here Sunday at 11 for another edition of The Georgia Vote.